Hello everybody, welcome back to Talking Walls. My name is Dave. Hope you guys are keeping well and safe. And we've got a special video today alongside me, as you can see. We've got Jason Guy. Jace, how's it going, man?
All good, Dave. All good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Very good. Thank you. Very good. We're going to be talking to Jason today. Look at the t-shirt for a start, representing the Talking Walls brand. I like to see.
I thought you was going to send me one for free. I had to pay for
it. Well, I'll sort you out next time.
I'm joking.
Yeah. We're going to be talking to Jason today about a special project that's coming up, and obviously you guys can get involved and support it as well. Let's jump straight into it, Jason. You got a brand new book that's going to be coming out in February.
Yeah.
Tales from the Tape, Wolves-rated book. Sell it to us. What's it all about?
Well, what it was, I was trapped in lockdown with my missus. And to be honest, she's just given birth. So as you can imagine, we've been quite busy over the past 9 months. Anyway, during that period, I was sick of gardening. And look, I've been doing the podcasts now for just over 12 months. And not everybody, Dave, as you know, is in the digital age. Not everybody goes on YouTube. Not everybody listens to podcasts. Not everybody's got the time. So I thought, right, it would be a good opportunity to basically listen to the podcast again and transcribe them into book form and put them into black and white, so people can, obviously, who don't listen to podcasts and who can still enjoy all the stories. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realise what hard work it was going to be. And to do a chapter, I've had to listen to all the podcasts back and then speak to the former player or manager again and ask them more questions, get more information. And it literally has took me, best part of 9 months, but we've got there now. And yet it's out in February. Tales from the Tape. We've interviewed 36 people, and there's some really, really good stories in there. There's a lot of the stories that are on the podcast, and there's a few that aren't on the podcast. And to be honest, I am pleased with it. I'm sure there's going to be a few critics out there who will tell me I'm not a journalist, which I'm not, but I'm looking forward to it coming out. And most importantly, Dave, we are supporting 2 charities, 2 close to my heart. Breast Cancer Now, I think a lot of people know the story to that, and the neonatal department at New Cross Hospital, because shortly after my daughter was born, she required a little bit of help, and they've been brilliant. So they're the 2 charities that we're going to be supporting.
Yeah, both fantastic charities. I know we were talking beforehand about a charity event that me and my family set up for neonatal as well. My brother was severely premature, so 2 great charities there as well. Yeah, so the podcast obviously you were talking about is the Wolf Whistle podcast. I'll be honest, I've not listened to all of them, but I've listened to a good amount of them. So
there's a lot.
Yeah, how did that kick off then?
It's a weird one, really, because look, what you guys do, you do a fantastic job, and like I said, I've listened to your podcast, I've watched your YouTube, and honestly, it's really, really good. And I never thought I could do anything like that. But what it was, I helped run the Wolves All Stars, which is a charity team of ex-players, and I'm in the dressing room, when I can get a shirt, and then there's like John Purdy, Colin Taylor, Jody Craddock, and I'm talking to them about all the stories. And I thought, what would be great if we could document these for people to listen to. And started one with Colin Taylor, done that, and then it's progressed from there. And we've done Colin Taylor, John Purdy, Dean Edwards, Jody Craddock. We've done now 55 full podcasts, and we did a best 11 series, and I think we've done about 15 of them. So we've interviewed now 70 former players and managers. And you know what? It's gone really, really well. They've been well received. What's interesting is, I'm interviewing players from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and some of these players, they don't get the chance to be interviewed anymore, so they've enjoyed it, and it's a good platform, really, for them to get the stories back out there.
How have you been able to get hold of those players? Like, I'm sure, like the players, maybe the 60s and possibly even the 70s, they were sort of before you were watching the Wolves. So how were you able to get those contacts almost?
The reality is, Dave, I'm a professional stalker. So listen, mate, if I want to get hold of someone, I'll find them. It's quite interesting, really, because there's some people I speak to. Like, I'm doing one with a guy in America tonight, a former player called Les Wilson, and he hasn't got WhatsApp. So now he's downloaded WhatsApp just so I can do the recording with him. But yeah, so I've interviewed a lot of the local people, obviously Steve Daly, Phil Parks, etc., who live local. But then I started interviewing players all over the world. And what a great form of getting older people is social media, Twitter, Instagram, getting into people's DMs. And look, some respond, I've had a few former players, and I won't name names, say, look, podcasts aren't for me, not interested, which is great. Then I've had others who really look forward to it, and, it's good for them. And listen, what's been quite nice as well, 3 or 4 of the people I've interviewed have actually cried in the podcast. And, where they get that emotional about talking about probably one of the best times in their life. And you think, wow, moments like that are priceless. So plenty more to come, Dave.
Good, I'm looking forward to it. Now, there was quite a few. I think the ones that stick out, the Dave Jones one, because that was just a little bit before I properly got into Wolves. So obviously I wanted to learn a lot more about that. And obviously he had his issues off the field as well, which he went into. Obviously that caused a bit of controversy on Twitter as well, isn't it?
I mean, so I interviewed Dave Jones, and I think there was a spat where when Dave Jones was manager of Carlisle, Jeff Stelling basically called him out.
Was it Hartlepool, wasn't it?
Hartlepool, sorry, not Carlisle.
Hartlepool. That was it.
Dave was manager of Hartlepool, and Jeff Stelling, who was on the board, I believe, called him out and said, look, it's time to go now, Dave. And he was really damning. And Dave hasn't had a job in football since then. So he got sacked as a result. So when I did the podcast with him, Dave had never heard what Jeff Stelling said. So I played it to him. And when I played it to him, Dave Jones just went, listen, he basically really went in at Jeff. Somehow, Jeff Stelling then got to listen to the podcast. And then he come at me on Twitter. And which is what's really nice. I mean, Dave, Jeff Stelling's book now. So he's brought a book out called You've Got Mail. And he mentions the Wolf Whistle podcast.
Is it actually?
Yeah, he does. So it's all good. So they actually, because I mean, to be fair to Dave Jones, he didn't hold anything back, and he said, look, if Jeff Stelling was on fire, I wouldn't waste my water on him, and all that made Jeff Stelling's book. So listen, all publicity is good publicity in my eyes.
To be fair, I've met Jeff Stelling a couple of times and like charity stuff that I've done with prostate cancer, and obviously he's really been a sound guy, I suppose, but. Yeah, I remember that Twitter spat, to be fair. And I mean, it's sort of almost out of your control because it's not like you sort of said anything about it. I mean, it was a topic that had to be brought, really, because that's almost sort of a nail in, I don't want to say it, but like almost a nail in the coffin for Dave Jones' sort of management career, really. Like you say, he's not really been able to get a job since then. So,
well, it wasn't. Listen, when I interview a former player, I don't like to chuck anyone under the bus. So I won't. Before the interview, I'll say, these are the questions I'm asking. And some players say, listen, could you rephrase that, or could you not ask that, or etc. And that's absolutely fine. But I wouldn't just go in and chuck. And I said to Dave, and Dave said, I don't want to know what you've got on that piece of paper. You ask me anything. So it was carte blanche, really. So, and he answered it as it was. And like I said yesterday, and I think Jeff had a couple of glasses of vino that night, to be fair. Because he was really brave on he was giving it loads. But anyway. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. And in terms of, I mean, I've listened to some podcasts. There's some I remember, for argument's sake, I think it was when I was on holiday, the Harry Burgoyne one came out, the Aaron McCary one. And those two especially, I was interested to listen to them because I thought for two players that are still fairly young, didn't have massive first team careers at Wolves, I was interested to listen how you got it. But the fact that, we learned so much about both players, even at their times at Wolves, and, it really invested me in the podcast. Got an hour long of those two. Harry Burgoyne's especially, was a young player coming through the ranks. Really good podcasts.
Well, Dave, that means a lot to me because when I'm prepping, sometimes I've interviewed one player called Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson, he played one game for Wolves. Really interesting story. Then I've interviewed a guy called Andy Turner, who got signed by Wolves by Colin Lee and never made the first team. So you do have to do a lot of prep, and I don't want to do a podcast and listen to, people listening to 50 minutes of their time at Spurs, and then 10 minutes at Wolves. Yeah. So you have to balance it out and focus on Wolves. But sometimes some players have had better careers at Wolves than others. So, for example, if you interviewed Steve Bull, there's so much material you've got. But then there's others that are less. So I have to plan it properly. And then when I get to the Wolves bit, really focus on that time, try and get something juicy out of them, and if they didn't get on with a player or a manager. But luckily, like I said, down to kind people like you who keep listening, it's all gone very well so far. And obviously we've got lots more in the pipeline to come as well.
Yeah, even the ones like the Nigel Quasi one as well. Obviously, a guy that's didn't have a massive career at Wolves. He's obviously played a good few games, but his story was great as well. And still, a lot of it was crazy because he was talking about other clubs, and it almost sort of all came together in the end because of he played. I think he played for Birmingham or Albion, was it, or something like that? And obviously, that almost transitioned his move to Wolves as well. So
I think he was in the tunnel after one of the games. I think it was Birmingham City, and he was in the tunnel. And Mick McCarthy said, "Listen, you could do a job for us." And he come and played 4 games on loan, and his story's amazing because he was really brought up in the deepest, darkest depths of London. And his mum, he used to go out football training, and his mum didn't even know whether he was going to come home because it was such a rough estate where he lived. Nigel's in particular was a really interesting story, albeit he only played 4 games on loan at Wolves.
Yeah, it was a really good one, that was. And in terms of if there is a one person that or ex-player, ex-manager that you haven't got on the podcast yet that you're desperate to get on, that you'd love to get on? Because Steve Bully's not done a full podcast, has he? Do you reckon that he's ever in the pipeline? No. Or?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've definitely got one lined up with Bully, but with Bully, for example, I don't want to ask him the normal questions we've all heard. With Bully, I want to ask him questions like, where did the aeroplane celebration come from?
Yeah.
Why did you do a gambale after 4? Why? He's scored. He's a right-footed player, but he scored over 100 goals with his left foot.
Wow.
And when he signs an autograph, he signs it with his left hand. But when he plays golf, he's right-handed. So I need to know.
You could do like a 6-part series on Bully though as well. So difficult to do that in a 1-hour podcast. You'll do it. You'll be really happy you've done it, and then like an hour later, you'll be kicking yourself that you've missed this, and this, that, because it's going to be so many questions to ask him.
There is, but there's actually 2 players that I really want to get on. So I can't limit it to one. There's 2 players I really want to get on, and they're probably a bit before your time, Dave.
Yeah.
But it's Chris Marsden and Michael Branch.
Branch, yeah, that'll be a really good one. Interesting.
Yeah, now I've got hold of Everton in the community, and I've had a bit of dialogue with them, but nothing's really been forthcoming. Chris Marsden, I do know someone who's got a contact number for him, but I've just been a bit lazy with that. But these are ones I do want to get on, and there's obviously the holy grail to all of this is obviously Peter Knowles, who doesn't give interviews. Peter obviously retired at the age of 23, as you know, Dave. You probably know his history. To give up the game to be a Jehovah's Witness. I know where Peter lives, so I've wrote to Peter, but I haven't had a response yet. But listen, we'll see. I mean, if we could get him on, it'd be amazing. But I understand it's not for everyone.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I think there's like you say, there's so many ex-players, ex-managers, ex-members of staff. Like it's almost there's never gonna ever be an end date to podcasts. I think they're fantastic, really.
Thank you. I mean, I suppose I've put myself under a little bit of pressure and bringing them out weekly. So now, flipping, it gets to like tonight, it gets to Wednesday, and I'm panicking now. I've got to get my podcast out. But sometimes I can have a good run, and I can have 5 or 6 all lined up, ready to go. Yeah. But I've been a bit lazy of late. When in fact, because I've had a daughter, so she keeps me awake most nights, and I get 2 hours sleep. But I'm doing one tonight with a guy called Les Wilson. He's in America. And what's nice is some of these, they really look forward to the podcast, and they really look forward to talking about it. And everyone, I must say, everyone I've had on so far has been really, really good. And I've had great feedback, which obviously means a lot. And I'm just glad that people are listening to them and enjoying them.
Who do you think is the one that's been almost your biggest coup? Someone like Andy Gray, maybe, or was he pretty easy to get hold of?
I was just going to say Andy Gray. I got hold of him through his son, who I know, Jamie Gray. So I think he's probably been the biggest name so far. I've also been working on, former chairman of the club. I've asked Jez Moxie if he wants to come on, but he hasn't replied yet.
That would be good.
I WhatsApped it. I WhatsApped Jez, got 2 blue ticks and
read and ignored, yeah.
Read and ignored, and so Jez clearly doesn't want to come on. Well, look, if he does, I wouldn't be too hard on him, to be fair.
I think that'd be good. I think that'd be interesting because I think no one's ever heard Jez's side of the story, have they? I think it's the same with Kevin Fellwell. I felt a lot for Kevin Fellwell because I think he did a very good job at Wolves, and he got a lot of stick. And I think that, I'm not saying Jez was a hero, you know what I mean? But it would be very interesting to hear his side of the story on everything, really.
I think the reality is with Jez, I know Jez personally. Jez done a fantastic job at Wolves. He kept a tight ship for many, many years, and he was under the direction of firstly Jack Hayward and then Steve Morgan.
Yeah.
And they made some decisions, and he had to go and front it up to all the Wolves fans. He's made some mistakes, of course he has, but once again, who hasn't? So obviously Jez is one that we really do want on. And Kevin Thelwell, I've messaged Kevin. And I think Kevin's going to be one that we're going to get on in the future. And once again, listen, Fosun and our mugs and all the other previous owners and our mugs, and Kevin Thelwell done a good job at Wolves. Some people can't see it, and look, you know what Twitter's like. It's a flipping mind. You're not going to put this on Twitter, are you, Dave?
Well, we'll be careful. But in the book, is that every podcast you've done, sort of up until the publish, or is there's some that have missed the cut? Or
well, it was a bit of a difficult one, really. So there's like I've chose 36, so there's 36, but I've done it in chronological order. So the first one's Teddy Wharton, then Phil Parkinson, Steve Dowdy, Kenny Ibbett, blah blah, John Barnwell, all the way through to Michael Kitely and Carl Akimi. So I was conscious not to get too many players from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. So I've done it in chronological order. So what's nice is you read Teddy Wharton's and you're going back to the creaking floorboards of Molyneux and people having a fag in the toilets at half time and etc. And then right through to Michael Kitely, where he talks about depression.
Podcast,
Yeah, Carl Akimi talks about, obviously, his battle with leukemia. Then we've got Jody Craddock, who talks about his tragedies in his life. So we actually don't just talk football. Obviously, that's an important part. And we talk about, stories that have been kept in the dressing room, but also we talk about their personal life, and the tragedies and the things that they've all been through, which as supporters we sometimes don't see or care for. If there's some stories there which Robbie Dennison tells, one about his son having colic, and he wasn't performing on the pitch, and he said the fans were giving him a hard time, and he said he was really, really struggling. And he just went into Graham Turner one day and said, I can't play today. I just can't play. And he didn't play in a match and Wolves lost 5-0. So he was over the moon. He said, if we'd have lost 5-0, it might have been my last game for Wolves. Yeah. So if we'd have won 5-0, sorry. So, so there's some great stories. And all the players have been absolutely brilliant as well, because I've had to then do the chapter, send it to them. They've got to obviously accept the fact that it's going into print. But no, they've been absolutely brilliant, Dave.
That's great news. And do you think, obviously, if this is successful, there'll definitely be another one, maybe part 2 of the book?
Oh, well, I think I'm going to have to wait till my daughter's about 15, so I can at least find the time to do it. But listen, so far, it's already in profit for the charities, which is absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. And, that's the most important thing to me, really. Obviously, the content's there. I'm not just saying it is a good book and people will enjoy it. And Paul Berry's proof reading it. And he thinks it's good, and he's wrote a couple of books. So if there's any spelling mistakes or any grammar, you go to Paul Berry, not to me. Yeah. If you think it's good, you come to me. But yeah, so in the future, yes, I'm sure we could do. But flipping heck, let me sell this one first, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. But where's the best place people can pre-order it? Because it's out in Feb. Where's the best place people can pre-order?
Well, probably Twitter. So if I haven't blocked you, because the block list's in 3 figures now. So if I haven't blocked you, get your mate to tweet me. But no, yeah, on Twitter, either Wolves Premier or Wolf Whistle Pod. If you DM me, I'll get your name and address down. And yeah, every actually, because the book's in profit now, every penny from the sales of these books now is going directly to breast cancer now and the neonatal department at New Cross. So we've already sold 200 subscriber copies, which means that the book is paid for, and the book is paid for and more, and now every penny is going straight to 2 charities. So the as much support as we can get, the better. Perfect.
And thanks a lot for your time today, Jason. As always, the links to Jason's social medias, obviously to order your book and so on, will be in the description of the video. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Be sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and yeah, thanks a lot, Jason. We'll catch you all very soon.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks, guys.